So hi, this is Camila.
And this is Mauricio.
And today we're going to talk about the most commonly asked questions about the buying process of real estate in Medellin, Colombia. So Mara, I want to ask you, is the buying process for a foreigner the same as for a Colombian?
Yes, good question. The buying process is exactly the same, except when you transfer the funds into Colombia as a foreigner. Obviously, if you're a Colombian, you already have your money here. But if you're a foreigner, the biggest issue or what is different in the process is to legalize the money and transfer the funds into the country. And there's two ways to do this. Remember which ones?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's you either transfer the money directly to the bank account of the owner, or number two, which we do recommend, is that you open up a brokerage account. So you transfer the money from your international account into a brokerage account here in Colombia, and then from there you send the money over to the owner. And the reason why it's very important to do this extra step is that when you do find a property and you want to make an offer, when the seller accepts the offer, you need to sign the purchase agreement, right? Yeah. And in the purchase agreement, there is a penalty clause if you don't follow the established rules and terms in the contract. So if you say that you're going to transfer over the money and you do it to the seller's account and they can't accept the money, it gets wired back, and then you have no way to fulfill the contract, and that's when the penalty clause hit. But if you, instead of that, send the money directly to your brokerage account and you have that open before you make the offer, then you know that you will be able to pay whatever the contract says. And that's how you make a secure investment here in Colombia. So you cut that risk away. So the second question is there extra cost for a foreigner to hire a real estate agent here in Colombia in comparison to the US?
And the answer for the question is no. So the commission here in Colombia is paid by the owner, which means that the buyer is not going to pay any extra commission to us. For us, we focus as a buyer's agent, which means that you come to us and we're going to help you find the right property for you, even if it's an investment or a property for you to live. But the thing is, even if we work as a buyer agent, the owner is going to be the person that is going to pay our commission. We don't charge any fee for helping you start buying a property here. We're going to get paid when you find the property and you actually buy it.
So we're to question number 3, a very commonly asked question by our investors, and that is, what cost should I have in mind when buying a property here in Medellin?
Okay, thank you, Mauro. So the first thing that you should have in mind are the closing costs. So the closing costs here in Colombia are approximate to 1.6% on the purchase price. So these closing costs are most of the time split about 50% to the seller and 50% to the buyer. So the second cost that you want to have in mind is the brokerage account fee. So the brokerage company charges 0.6% on the amount that you're wiring into your account. And then when you wire money to the seller, then you will pay a bank fee, 0.4% on the amount that you're sending. The third cost is going to be the legal fees. So the lawyer is going to be in charge of making the title study, the purchase agreement, helping you on the deed transfer, and also she can help you on the visa if you want to get an investment visa or a nomad visa. The fourth cost is going to be the HOA and the utilities. These are going to be some costs that you're going to have to pay after acquiring the property. But this is something that you will always want to have clear before buying the property. For example, in the HOA, there are sometimes the HOAs will charge an extra fee, maybe because they're doing some extra maintenance or some remodeling or new things in the building. So this is something that you always want to have clear. And the fifth cost that we always suggest to our client is try to go with an architect or an interior designer before buying the property and get an estimation about how much the furniture of the apartment is going to be, so you can have all your numbers clear. So Mauro, now I want to know, how can a client avoid to pay more for a property that they should?
Very good question. Thanks. Yeah, so as in any other field, how do you pay less than you should? you have more information than other parties. It's all about collect as much information about the property as possible. And what do I mean by that? For example, here in Colombia, you don't have an MLS system. So to collect all information that is needed, for example, price per square meter, how much did a neighbor's apartment sell for? Is there any new projects going on in the city? What is the city's plan for this area? So if you have all this information, and then you also, when you approach different sellers, you do as many questions as possible. For example, why are you selling? Is there any changes in family circumstances? Do they need to move? Do they have any family member who's moving outside of the country? Is there an urgency to sell? Do they prefer to get money right now? Then maybe wait for the right price in the future. And with all this information, you collect it and then you go around and do different lowball offers on different properties that you like. And you see how the seller reacts, and that's in the end how you get a good purchase price on a property. Collect as much information as possible. And also, how do you do that? By an experienced real estate agent, as here in Premio Propiedades.
Maru, so is it possible for a foreigner to finance a home in Colombia?
Yes, it's possible. If you're thinking, when I hear the question, it comes to my mind mortgages, which for a foreigner is almost not 0%, that's a little bit rough, but it's close to 0%. Why? One thing to have in mind before is if you get a mortgage in Colombia, the interest rates are almost ridiculous. They're extremely high in comparison to other parts of the world. They can be as much as 14 to 18% a year. And have in mind, if you buy an investment property here, as you know, if you have seen the channel before, a good return of investment would be about 1% a month, which adds up being 12. So if you then come in and have a mortgage that is higher than that, it makes little sense to buy here. So what we do recommend instead is to be creative with your finance. For example, do I have a rich family member who's looking to do investments? Could I convince them to come down to Colombia and we could do this together? Or is there any investment groups that I could be joining in the US and try to collect different investors to buy a property here? I think that kind of creative finance, it's much more lucrative and better for you as an investor. So to question number 6, what is the first step when you buy a home here in Colombia?
So Maru, for that question, I wouldn't say it's just the first step for buying here in Colombia, but the first step when you're going to buy a property, even if it's Colombia or United States or anywhere, is to have your finance clear. You need to know how much you're willing to spend into a property. And something that I will add to that step is maybe to have in mind what's your goal going to be. Is it going to be an investment? Is it going to be a lifestyle apartment? Or is it going to be a place for you to live? So those two things, I will combine them into the first step before buying a real estate property.
Very good answer.
So Mauro, question number 7 is, should I do a home inspection?
Yes, that answer will actually surprisingly be no. And why? It's because here in Colombia, a home inspection is not what you think about when you hear a home inspection in the US or in Europe, for example. Actually, we had one client some years ago that really insisted on making a home inspection. So we hired a company who officially makes home inspections. So they came to the property, knocked on some walls, checked if there was any obvious faults with the property, went into the bathroom, smelled if there was any funky smell, and that was the home inspection. Although, in their defense, they did do a report, which was very underwhelming. After that, the buyer was disappointed in us as a real estate company because she thought the home inspection was no good. And after that, we have never recommended anybody to do a home inspection. What we do recommend though is that you can bring an architect or a construction engineer to the site, and then they can go through and do an inspection. But it's not a home inspection per se, as they take any responsibility. So it's more about checking up the property, see if there are any obvious faults, and that will do.
So that was it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave your biggest takeaway in the comments.
And consider to subscribe, hit that like button, and definitely check the next video.